Welcome, everyone. Thanks very much to MS Focus, the MS Foundation, for hosting us today. You're looking at a picture of our staff. The people that will be speaking with you today are myself, Brian Hutchinson. I'm the director of the MS Achievement Center. Tiffany Malone, who is our program manager and a social worker by trade, will be talking to you also. And then Zoe Edwards, who is our outreach education coordinator, but also a nutrition educator. So we'll be covering a couple of different areas. I should say a few, because we're going to be covering different areas of wellness. We titled this Becoming the CEO of Your Wellness because you are in charge, and there are many ways and many things that you can do in order to take charge of your overall wellness. So that's why we came up with that particular title. So one disclosure a bit is that there are other multiple sclerosis achievement centers across the country. We are going to present our model, the one that we find to be helpful and beneficial to our members. So there may be other achievement centers throughout the country that do things slightly differently, but as a wellness model and as a day wellness program, this is the approach that we take. So before I get into that, wellness is certainly something, and I think evidenced by the fact that you joined today, that is something that is a priority for people living with MS. This particular study right here showed that people were talking a lot about wellness components. This was something that the National Multiple Sclerosis Society commissioned and did a research study on looking at social media listening. So what were people talking about on the internet? This is a marketing and public relations process to identify topics. And what they found was that people were talking about information on living well actually more frequently than pharmacological approaches. So people are very interested in learning more about wellness. The challenge is wellness is a very broad topic, and we're going to break it down a little bit, but certainly we don't want to limit it. We want to talk to you again about our approach to managing your wellness. So the Multiple Sclerosis Achievement Center really was founded in 2014 based on this philosophy of people were interested in learning more about wellness, but there wasn't a lot available in terms of facilities in which one could gain that information. So the Multiple Sclerosis Achievement Center here in Sacramento was founded to help provide education and support for physical, cognitive, and emotional well-being. A key component of what we do is about health education, because that's another key component of overall wellness. And we'll touch a bit upon that, but it really goes back to making sure that you take care of the other aspects of your health in addition to your multiple sclerosis. The outcomes and our anticipated outcomes was to improve quality of life, increase socialization, looking at ways in which we might be able to monitor and communicate with physicians about potential secondary complications. As you'll see, we see people on a frequent basis, so we can communicate back to their healthcare team about things that might be going on. And if they haven't seen that individual in 6 months, that might be very important and information for them to have. And then hopefully through that education, we can decrease healthcare utilization a little bit. So we have two different programs that we offer. We do one that's called Empowered to Achieve, and I'll get to the second one here momentarily. But for both of our programs, people attend 1 day per week. In this program, prior to the pandemic, we would see people for 5 hours from 10 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And it would include up to 24 people per day. We had to modify during the pandemic. We're back to about 4.5 hours of in-person programming, and we supplement a little bit online with some different activities. But we include the following elements in what we do during that 1 day per week for everyone. We do individualized and group exercise. And right now that's a mixture between in-person and online. We do cognitive stimulation, and we're going to touch upon all of these here momentarily. Recreational activities are another component of what we try to incorporate, having some fun while also gaining some therapeutic benefit. And then, as I mentioned, education is another key component. Our second program is called Achieving Wellness. Once again, people attend 1 day per week, but we learned early on that people sometimes were intimidated by the fact that it was a 5-hour program. That was a barrier in some cases to their participation. So we developed a 2.5-hour program, and that took place prior to the pandemic from 11 to 1:30. We had a little bit of an overlap, and we had an afternoon group that came in at 12:30 and overlapped by an hour for the education component, and then continued on till 3 o'clock. Once again, 24 people per day was what we can accommodate in our space. And we do individualized and group activities from an exercise perspective, as well as cognitive and education programs. Just to give you a sense, we're going to be going a little bit back and forth here. I noticed someone raised their hand. If you want to type something into the Q&A or the chat box, I will try to, if it's specific to my topic, I can try to answer it while someone else is speaking, and vice versa. So if that might work, otherwise we will be having a Q&A at the end of the program. In addition to what we do on that 1 day per week, we also have some additional programs that we offer. These are some of our outreach and adjunct programs, as we call them. Some of them we've had to put a bit of hold on with the pandemic. Some of them we moved to virtual formats, and some of them are now returning to some in-person activities. But we do a book club, and we continue to do that virtually. The writing group that we have was also conducted virtually. The support partner group, we know that people living with MS includes the family. So we have a group for support partners once a month that is led by a neuropsychologist to address some of the unique needs of individuals who are living with a person who is diagnosed with MS. Social outings include things like movies and picnics and other kinds of fun activities in which we can get all of those people to come together and have some fun. And that's the goal of those particular programs. We collect a number of measures. I'm not going to go into detail about what these are, but essentially one is looking at self-efficacy, or sometimes referred to as, how much confidence you have in the ability to obtain or participate in a certain activity. The multiple sclerosis impact scale, which really identifies your view of how MS impacts you, both from a physical as well as a psychological standpoint. Quality of life measures, we use the NeuroQual, and then we look at exercise through the Godin Leisure Time Exercise Questionnaire. I tell you that because there's a couple of things that we found as a result of our program over a period of time. What we found is that individuals who participate in our program, there is a correlation between the amount of self-efficacy and the impact of the disease. And what that means when I say inverse correlation is that as self-efficacy goes up, or that confidence, if you will, what people do report is a decreased impact of MS on their lives. And vice versa, if people report high impacts of MS on their life, their self-efficacy tends to be a little bit lower. So that's an inverse correlation. We also see that with people's ability to participate in activities outside of here, as well as positive affect. These are measurements of quality of life and the impact. Okay, so once again, as the ability to participate goes up, the MSIS or the impact of the disease goes down. And then there is a direct correlation between anxiety and the impact. What we found in our program is that there was an improvement in how people identified the impact of MS on their lives. And we also saw improvements in their self-efficacy as well as quality of life measures. So the ability of people to get together and participate in healthy activities, essentially in our group, showed that there was a decreased impact of how they view MS on their life and their improvements in self-efficacy and quality of life. So that's just kind of an introduction to our program. As I mentioned, Tiffany Malone is our program manager, so she oversees the programs that I just described, but her background is social work. So she really oversees not only the mental health or the emotional health side of things, but also the cognitive side of things in our programs. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's going to talk to you about that aspect of our program.
Thanks, Brian. So yes, thank you for all being here, and we're very happy to be with you today. We can go to the next slide. So just a little background about multiple sclerosis and mental health. When we think about depression, what we know is that depression affects approximately 20% of the general population. That more than doubles, and you can see it could up to triple for people living with MS, up to 40 to 60% for people living with MS. That's quite a jump for that population. In addition, anxiety affects about 30% of people living with MS. And suicide rates are 7.5 times higher for someone living with MS than the general population. This is why the mental health and the emotional piece of our program is so important. What practitioners, what doctors and physicians may recognize is that someone living with MS may not be adhering to their treatment plan, to the medical plan that's set with their doctors. And some of that can be because of mood, because of emotions, and because depression and anxiety are taking over in the decision-making process. And that can affect someone's ability and motivation to participate in their overall wellness. Next slide, please. What we see often for people living with MS and their loved ones, this is not just for the person living with MS, it could be a support partner, caregiver, loved one, family member, even a close friend, is that there are some common emotional reactions to living with MS. Grief, the loss of the person that I was before prior to the diagnosis, or to who we were as a family, as a couple, prior to the diagnosis. And the ongoing grief of the loss of ability, function, things that we wanted to do, like work, drive, participate in particular activities. So there can be a constant feeling of grief and loss because of the diagnosis. Anxiety, what does this mean? What is tomorrow going to look like? Can I commit to going to lunch with a friend? How will I feel? Will I feel like I can do that? Will I be able to get up and be able to make it to that appointment? And what does the future hold? What else will I lose because of this diagnosis? Or will we lose as a family? Anger. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't go into the doctor's office and said, yes, I will have the MS today. Thank you. So anger that happened, that was the diagnosis, and that there's no cure yet for that diagnosis. Guilt, especially for those who were the breadwinners of the family. Guilt that I had to stop working. Maybe I had to retire early. How am I going to financially support my family? For a caregiver, for a support partner, how am I going to be able to properly care for my loved one? Can I do that with my own health ailments or my own situation that we need to take into consideration? So there can be a lot of feelings of guilt there. And of course, fear of the unknown. What's going to happen? What's in store for me, for us? And that can also be a common reaction. And what we have heard is that these reactions and these feelings have definitely been predominant through the pandemic. So these feelings that people were feeling already, and I didn't have this on here, but isolation is another one that has definitely been exacerbated because of the pandemic. So Brian mentioned that we collect some outcomes, and I wanted to share some here that we did publish on a poster for a meeting for the consortium of MS centers across the country and across the world. What we were able to show is some 2-year data. And what you're seeing here is that MSCS 29 scale on the far left of your screen that Brian mentioned was the impact of MS, how our members were reporting the impact of MS on their lives. And as you can see, those bars go down. So over a 2-year period from baseline to our 2-year data, we saw that the impact, the feeling of the impact, the perception of the impact decreased. And you'll see that in the middle is depression. And you'll see that there's been no change. And to be honest with you, at 2 years, we were pretty excited about that because it didn't get worse. There wasn't more feeling of depression. It was actually maintained. And our members attribute some of that, if not all of that for some of them, to their participation here at the Achievement Center. On the far right, you'll see the exercise activity, the physical activity component, and that we did see at year 2 that did go up for people, that they were participating in physical activity more so at year 2 than at baseline. But I'll let Brian talk more about the exercise component during his section. So Brian mentioned that I'm also in charge of the cognitive part of our program, and really mood and cognition go together. We know that at least 65% of people living with MS will experience cognitive dysfunction at some point during their diagnosis. That includes thinking skills, processing speed, memory, attention, decision-making skills, among others. And if you have cognitive dysfunction, and you're not feeling great from a mood perspective, those challenges can be exacerbated by mood. Additionally, cognitive dysfunction is directly affected by depression and anxiety. So when we're already having trouble thinking or word finding, and we're really not feeling great about our situation, and we're feeling down, we're feeling depressed, we're feeling anxious, fearful, angry, that's going to exacerbate those feelings of being able to make decisions, to find our words properly, and to think properly. Next slide, please. There are a lot of ways that we encourage our members here at the Achievement Center to address emotion and cognition. And I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but I'll highlight some of them. For one, it really takes a village to manage this diagnosis. And it's okay to have a village of support, of family, of friends, of medical professionals, of literature, to be able to address and manage these parts of our multiple sclerosis. So it's important to build your circle of support and have that team available to you for when you need it. That can include support groups. I do caution that you find the support group that works best for you. If you've tried one and it didn't work out for you, try a different one. Maybe an online group is better for you. Maybe an in-person group is better for you, which I know was not available over the past 1.5 years or so. Maybe a smaller group is better. Maybe a professionally led support group is better for you. Find what works best for you, but again, build that community, build that support system. There are a variety of websites and applications that you can get on your mobile device or on your computer that can address both emotional health and cognition. If you're ever interested in what that list looks like, reach out to me. I'd have no problem sharing those apps that we use here. But some are like Calm, that can help you just kind of debrief and get away from the noise of the world and the noise of your day. and can allow you to really get centered and get back into a better thinking space and a better emotional space. There are several cognitive activities that we use on mobile devices through applications that again, I would be happy to share with, that address the thinking skills, the memory, the attention, and so on and so forth. Written information. Maybe you're a person who needs to see it in writing. So going to trusted sources to get your information is also an idea that might be helpful to you. Again, a trusted source, maybe asking your physician where you might be able to do more research, or if they would be willing to share their notes with you so that you have those notes to recall your appointment from today or from that particular day. The other way that this can be helpful is to take someone with you to take notes for you, so that when you get out of that appointment, you will be able to recap what was discussed and what the plan is moving forward. Exercise and diet are also on here. I'm going to let Brian and Zoe attack those individually. But again, those are ways that we can feel better. When we feel better, we can think better. And so those might be alternatives as well. Telehealth is on here, which I have on here because before the pandemic, I don't think many of us really had an opportunity to experience telehealth. But I do think that most of us, if not all of us, have had that opportunity. And maybe it's something that you found worked really well for you. That might be an opportunity for you to discuss with your medical providers if it's okay to continue telehealth appointments. Maybe it's a far distance to drive. Maybe you have one of your 2 appointments per year on telehealth. And it may give you an opportunity to connect with more practitioners, especially if distance, fatigue, energy, things like that are of challenge. So again, what we do here and why we feel like these components are really important for as part of the MS Achievement Center, we offer a group discussion called Be Here Now. That's something we developed a few years ago, and it's an opportunity for our members to get together to talk about the emotional side of MS. It's titled Be Here Now on purpose. It's because we really focus on the here and now. What's happening today? What's happening right now in my life? Rather than being so focused and so inundated by what used to be or what is in the future. The land of what if and the land of I used to be able to can be really destructive and can really, really bring us down emotionally and cognitively. And so this group discussion, it really focuses on and encourages us to be in the moment so that we don't miss the things that we could be grateful for that we may not have been paying attention to otherwise. I also offer individual consults as needed for someone who might be having a more difficult time than usual to talk about the emotional aspect and how it's contributing to their daily lives and their daily decisions. Another thing that we offer here that I really think contributes to the emotional side and the cognitive side of our members is music therapy. Once a month, we have a music therapist come in. Our members gather together. They've written songs. They've had drum circles. They try to remember the artist of particular songs that are being shared. And most recently, through the pandemic, we've been doing an education series about music and the musical influences that exist. And I think that that's been really helpful on the emotional side, especially, but certainly from the cognitive side as well. And then I mentioned the iPad applications. We use a variety of free applications and we share them with our members so that they can use them at home. We primarily use iPads for our cognitive stimulation program and really pick things that really have to do with attention, memory, visual perception, thinking skills, decision making, all of those components that it's really not about playing games. It is to some people, but really it's about having to think and make decisions. And that's also what our recreation program entails, is that it's maybe a card game or a game of dominoes together as a group that offers the social component to make us feel better and excited to be around one another, but also we're having to think and make decisions. And so there is a cognitive component to that as well. And lastly, I'll ask, what can you do? And some suggestions, what you can do at home to bring some of that into your own environment without having an MS Achievement Center to go to, is to build your community, to really make sure you have that circle of support behind you. You may not need a particular person for everything in your life, but you might have someone to that you can call out to help transport you somewhere, or for particular parts of your life that might be useful. Have that circle of support identified and ready as you need it. Be aware of your negative headspace. We all have head chatter all day long, every day, we all have it, but be aware of how it's affecting you. If you're sitting, especially in isolation, thinking about what used to be, what you used to be able to do, and really getting inundated by those thoughts, hopefully you can find ways to reach out to someone, connect with a professional, connect with a counselor or a psychologist to help you work through some of that chatter so that it's not as loud and not as powerful for you. Engage in meaningful activities. I know that that's been difficult over the last year and a half, but to get something on your calendar and to have these activities that we enjoyed, but hopefully you're able to find things, whether they're online or virtual. Maybe you have been able to get back to some in-person things, but get something on your calendar that you really look forward to, and really commit to it if at all possible. And lastly, I'll talk about pain. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time about that, but pain can definitely really play a part in our emotional wellness and our cognitive wellness. And so being able to manage that pain, working with your practitioner on ways to do that, working with a counselor or a psychologist to work through meditation and how that might be helpful for you, to find ways to manage your pain so that it's not as effective, not affecting your emotional and cognitive wellness as much as it can. I know there's a couple of questions that came in asking for the apps. I'm happy to share that list, and I will work with Casey on getting that to her and how we might be able to get that distributed to everyone. So we will work on getting that to you guys after the program. Did I miss any other questions? Okay. And now I will turn it back over to Brian, who will talk about the exercise portion of our program.
All right, everyone. So as Tiffany said, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about exercise. This isn't going to be a how-to type of thing. There's lots of resources out there. MS Focus, the MS Foundation, has a number of different resources and programs that you can get information about exercise, as well as many of the other advocacy organizations. But we find that it is an important component of an overall wellness program. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the exercise components and some of the rationale. I'm not going to get into a lot of information about specifics of exercise, but we do know that exercise is an important component for a number of different areas. It helps with management of symptoms. It helps with restoration of function. And we also know that it can be very helpful for quality of life. And I already pointed out a few of those things from our program in which we see a correlation between improvements in physical activity level and quality of life measures. Unfortunately, we also have literature and data to support the fact that not a large percentage of people with MS engage in sufficient amounts of physical activity. So we need to figure out ways in which people can become more engaged in activities, find what works for you. And that's really one of the things that we work on here and a number of other places. If you work with a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, they'll be working with you to try to find that level that works for you. But it's important to engage in those physical activity, and that includes lifestyle physical activity and not just structured exercise programs. So there's a lot of misinformation that still exists out there, and that's part of the problem. We look at the history of what's been recommended in terms of exercise in MS, and many of you or some of you may have been around when you were told not to exercise with MS because it may cause your MS to become worse. People also felt, by people, I mean the medical community, felt that exercise could make people weaker. We understand it a lot better now. We understand that there may be some temporary problems with increases in core body temperature within an exercise session. But overall, with a careful, structured exercise program, people can show improvements in strength, endurance, flexibility, balance, and many other areas, including the emotional and cognitive benefits of exercise. So this particular that you see here is the Canadian Physical Activity Guidelines for adults living with multiple sclerosis. This was developed back in 2013, 2014. If you look on the left-hand side, what you'll see are the guidelines. The recommendations for physical activity are 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise twice per week. So what we really try to hone in on with our particular program is, hey, you're coming here once. We need to get you to be able to participate at least one more time in some of the moderate intensity aerobic activity. And strength training, we also work on trying to incorporate strength training and flexibility and balance into our programs here. So people need to figure out how to get it done one more time per week, because you can definitely combine those activities on the same day. So you can do your aerobic activity and your strength training on the same day. So you don't necessarily have to look at this as, well, I need to commit 4 days of my week in order to do my aerobic and my strength training activities. For some people, that is the appropriate way to space it out because of fatigue and because of heat sensitivity, particularly this time of year. But know that that can be accomplished within a day and even broken up within the day. I would also say that the 30 minutes that you see in terms of moderate intensity activity doesn't necessarily need to be done in a continuous fashion. So you could do 10 minutes 3 times, with some small breaks between 2 15-minute sessions. There are many ways in which you can break that up and accomplish many of the goals that you want to from your exercise program. So here at the Achievement Center, we do individualized exercise programs. The nice thing about that and the confusing thing at the same time is the programs are individualized for those particular people, but it's done within an environment in which people have the opportunity to be social. They have an opportunity potentially to be distracted in some cases. So we have people that work out in the gym with other people, but they're doing their program based on what their goals are and what their specific needs are. We complement that with some group exercise programs. At this point, most of those group exercise programs that you see, specifically yoga, functional exercise training, circuit training, are things that are done online. So those are some group exercise programs that we have provided over the years. Pilates and Zumba are not currently offered, but we found those to be very beneficial and have been offered in the past to individuals as part of our program. So finding something that works for you, finding something that is fun, that you will engage in and allow you to become more active is really the goal. The individualized programs are really, again, geared towards what you want to gain and what the goals are. And they're not necessarily rehab programs. So it's really geared towards health and wellness as opposed to specific functional goals. If people have very specific goals that they would like to achieve, like improving walking or transfer techniques, we will often refer on to physical therapy for more specific concentration in that area, and then we will continue to complement what they're receiving for their therapies as part of our exercise programs. One other thing that I failed to mention there is one other program we have launched, and we launched right before the pandemic, was an aquatic exercise program. Unfortunately, we've had to put that on hold right now, just based on pools being closed and groups and so on and so forth. But that is something that we found to be very beneficial, and the individual feedback from that program was very positive also. So the individualized program, the pictures you see here give you a sense of some of the things that we have available. We have a recumbent elliptical that is a very popular piece of equipment because it spreads out the workload for folks. They can use their arms and their legs to accomplish their exercise. For some who may have a little bit more weakness in their legs, the upper body ergometer may be an appropriate tool for them to use, which is the one you see in the upper right. The lower, you're seeing some stretching and carrying through with a very specific stretching program. So we really try to individualize it based on that particular individual's needs. But we do promote a very well-balanced and exercise program, which would include strength, flexibility, and endurance. These are some other examples. We have some weight training. You can see there on the upper left using a resistance training machine. Treadmill for those who are ambulatory and enjoy the walking component. That's another opportunity for them. And then the one that you see below is a passive range of motion, or a mechanically operated machine that helps that person, excuse me, pedal the machine. So it's called a motomed, and there are other types of passive range of motion activities. But this is a nice piece of machinery for those who have a lot of fatigue that may go along with their lower extremities, and therefore they can participate for shorter periods of time and allow the motor to take over for a period of the time. These are some of the group exercises. You'll see Zumba on the upper left there, and this was pre-pandemic, so thus no masks and the like. And then one on the lower right hand is one of our online yoga classes that was done during the pandemic, or back in, I believe, probably May of 2020, June of 2020, something like that. So we've carried through with that. That's worked pretty well. We have a yoga instructor who essentially conducts the program, knows most of the people, so we can monitor them. We also have one other person who is monitoring on the screen to make sure people are doing okay with the activity. We can concentrate on posture and those kinds of things. So group exercise is another area. So this is some of that data that was talked about. This is a 2-year follow-up. Some of the information that Tiffany presented a little bit earlier. I have the arrow there showing the increase in the physical activity levels. Improving in that particular area with their participation in this program is something that we're very pleased that we've seen people increase their physical activity level. And for some, by definition, coming to this program increases their activity level because they're able to participate in a number of different activities. And there is that accountability that they have to other folks in the program. And that's a very powerful tool also. So what we have found is that, that there are myths that still exist out there. I mentioned them earlier, the previous recommendations that people with MS could not exercise safely. That just isn't true. We know that people can exercise safely. They may have to modify things, particularly in the summer months in terms of cooling, but they can exercise safely and effectively. We go back to those guidelines a couple of times per week at a moderate intensity. It doesn't have to be no pain, no gain. So we can find ways in which people can gain the benefits. There's a lot of research going on looking at exercise, and that's a good thing. Number one, to dispel some of those myths that we talked about a little bit earlier. Number two, to spread the word amongst some of those individuals to get people more involved in physical activity between their medical team as well as the rehabilitation team and others. There are many tools and resources out there for you to do online activities, finding individuals within your community. There may be some live activities that are available. It may be that you need to connect with a physical therapist or an exercise specialist of some sort to get started. But those things exist, and organizations like MS Focus are great resources to be able to help direct you and point you in the right direction. But there's also more tools and resources for providers to help identify the proper type and proper referral resources for physicians and nurses and others that will help guide them through that particular process in order to get people more physically active. So the future is bright and a lot more information is coming out. We didn't even touch upon some of the benefits we're seeing with cognition, but there are a lot of resources, as I mentioned, webinars that you can probably find that are archived that go through a little bit more of the ABCs of exercise. So with that, another key component that I think is really important, we feel in our program, is nutrition. Zoe Edwards, who is a nutrition educator, came on with our staff about 3 years ago now and really has developed our nutrition education program. And we've had a lot of great success with people living healthier lifestyles. And we feel that this is an important component in overall wellness. So I'm going to let Zoe talk a little bit further about what it is that we do from that standpoint.
Thank you very much. You can go to the next slide. So similar to as Brian and Tiffany did, I'm going to talk a little bit generally about what we know and then get into some more what we do here at the program and get into some specifics that we can use in our daily life at home. So there is no particular diet for people living with MS. I wish that I could tell you exactly what to eat to feel your best, but unfortunately, like everyone else, or with everything else with MS, it is different from person to person. So what we do know is that healthier diets and lifestyles were associated with lower levels of disability. And sorry, I'm reading a small font, so bear with me. In an analysis of survey involving more than 6,900 individuals, thank you, of people living with MS, like I said, we saw healthier diets and lifestyles showed lower disability. While we don't necessarily know exactly what to eat to feel our best, we do know that finding a dietary pattern that helps you individually can help manage your energy levels and can also help manage our weight, which then can help our mobility and our energy levels and kind of our day-to-day life. So even though there isn't that concrete data on exactly what to eat, we know that there are benefits from finding something that works for us and finding a way to eat balanced and healthy. Connected to cognition and mood, which Tiffany spoke about, multiple studies have shown that individuals with higher quality diets have lower rates of depression. And unfortunately, a diagnosis of MS does not mean that your box is checked and that we are not able to get other comorbidities or diagnoses. So trying to manage what we're eating to make sure that we don't get any other food-related comorbidities like diabetes or hypertension or other things along those lines. So here at the MS Achievement Center, similarly to what the others have said, we kind of have our pre-pandemic and post-pandemic model. So prior to the pandemic, we were doing a monthly nutrition education topic that was then tied to a meal that we would put together here at the center and serve for lunch. So you'll see a picture of some adaptive kitchen tools up top. The picture on the left is our meatloaf muffin with mashed sweet potato frosting. That was a big hit. So we would talk about a specific topic, make a recipe that was balanced and manageable, keeping fatigue and other MS symptoms in mind to enjoy together and kind of get to introduce ways that people might be able to feel confident and comfortable making their own food at home. We also provided a weekly snack, and those were simple, typically like even as low as 1 to 2 ingredient dips or options of trail mix or things like that, that kind of show that we can keep these foods on hand and have healthy options that are just as accessible as that bag of potato chips that always is so tempting. During the pandemic, we took it virtual, and there's the bottom right picture is a home setup of cooking on camera. Unfortunately, it did not allow everyone to enjoy the food, but we still kind of stuck with a similar model, talking about a specific nutrition topic and making a recipe that we could all try to make at home if we chose to. And especially in the beginning of the pandemic, we were mindful to talk about ingredients that maybe would last a little longer in our fridges, or recipes that we could make that would last a little longer if we weren't grocery shopping as regularly, which many of us have carried as things begin to open up more as well. We also do some small group multi-week programs that talk about specific topics, whether it's our snack attack or lunch bunch, talking about meal preparation or weight management or weight maintenance, just giving people the opportunity to learn from each other, that socialization aspect, and learn kind of what has worked for each individual, because we all have a lot of information to learn from each other as well. And similar to Tiffany, I do individual consultations with some of our members, whether it's talking about specific meal planning or ways that we can just kind of tweak what we're already eating to make it a little bit healthier. We do use a food frequency questionnaire called the Rate Your Plate to look at nutritional changes. And we have data based off of that has been shared at the consortium of MS centers meeting as well. So the food frequency questionnaire, the Rate Your Plate, has 27 questions. And so each question has a score of 1 to 3, with a higher score, meaning it is a better choice or a better diet. And the data that we showed, that we found, was that the mean average of total scores from baseline to 12 months increased by 4.92. And again, that's on a scale of 27 to 81. And each question kind of talks about different specifics, you know, if you choose white bread or wheat bread, how many sugar sweetened beverages you have a week or a day, the type of milk that you choose. And so 25 of the 27 questions saw an increase in the scores, meaning that, you know, maybe people were switching from whole milk to skim milk, or more chicken to red meat. So that was fantastic to see. And we continue to take that on a every 6-month basis. So I thought that, you know, we talk about a variety of topics around here. Some of them are more specific about nutrients. Other things are more just kind of ways that we can make better choices and be educated consumers. So some of the things that maybe we can take from today's conversation, and if you don't have an achievement center in your area, can be kind of trying to make the best or better choice for yourself. So checking food labels is one of the best things that you can do for yourself to be an educated consumer. You can check for ingredients, you can check for the serving size on the label, just to make sure that we are again making the best choice for ourselves. And it can often help us if, you know, we're comparing, even if we're just comparing 2 types of chips, let's say, you can choose one that maybe you'll get a little more nutritional value or maybe fewer calories if you're trying to watch watch your calories. Also looking at the ingredient list, there are a lot of additives in a lot of things. And so some people like to use the guide to make sure that they can pronounce some of the ingredients, just knowing what's in our food and being educated consumers in that sense. We can be mindful of the quantity that we're eating. We can be mindful in our eating. And so, you know, the serving size is a great place to start on the nutrition label, understanding that just because you eat something in one sitting does not mean that that is the nutritional information, that's the serving size. So maybe it's that you portion out, on the label A, it says 2/3 of a cup. So you portion out 2/3 of a cup onto a plate. And once you eat that, you can make the decision if you want to go for another serving or if you're actually satisfied and ready to move on to the next activity for the day. Choosing foods or beverages that allow us to reduce nutrients that are not as beneficial to our overall health and how we feel. We talk a lot about sugar packets around here, to the point that I hear I'm in people's ears a lot, but a simple rule of thumb that we use is 4 grams of added sugar is 1 packet. And, you know, if you look at a food label, you might say, oh, you know, 60 grams of sugar, that means nothing to me. It sounds like a lot, but I don't really know what it is. But if we picture 15 packets of sugar, we would maybe make a different choice or maybe reduce the quantity that we're eating. So as you are out grocery shopping or checking food labels in your pantry after this, like I'm sure everyone will, you can use that, divide the added sugars by 4 and kind of picture the packets, just to kind of make that choice for yourself. Another thing that we talk about a lot around here is our power pantry. The power pantry is kind of your individualized go-tos. So I put kind of a sample one at the bottom with like different proteins and vegetables, starch, dairy, fruit, other. But these are the ingredients that can make meals or snacks on your most challenging days. We can obviously have a spectrum of things that we went for when we feel like cooking, kind of our go-to, but always having something that's available and accessible so that even when we are really not feeling so great, we know that we're going to have a banana and some peanut butter that's ready to go and we can grab and enjoy that, because a lot of times we know what the better nutritional choice is that we should make, but there's that barrier of the energy of, you know, we can see that, you know, we have the fruit and vegetables in the fridge, but we have to cut it up. And then there's, again, that bag of potato chips that is just so easy to grab and go. So trying to make those healthier choices as accessible as that bag of potato chips, so that we're more likely to choose those. So yeah. So with that, we will leave some time for questions. I know Casey is going to help us moderate that, but thank you all so much for hanging in there with us.
All right, everyone. If you have a question that you would like to ask, there are a couple of ways that you can do it. On your toolbar at the bottom of your screen, you touch or click your screen, you have the Q&A button, which will allow you to enter a question and even submit it anonymously. You have the chat button, which will allow you to type a question in chat, or the raise hand button, which will raise your hand and I will be able to bring you live on the screen to ask your question. So while we give people just a moment to formulate their questions or type them into the Q&A, Tiffany, you had mentioned putting together some information about those apps. And if you can provide that to me, then I'd just like to let our listeners know that they can reply to their confirmation email for this conference. That will come to me and just request the information about the apps. When I get that from Tiffany, I'll pass that along to you.
Perfect. I'll be happy to share that.
Thank you so much. All right, let's see. One question was, I've tried counseling in the past and felt like it wasn't a good fit for me. Any other suggestions on how to help manage the challenges of this diagnosis?
That's a great question, and I hear that question a lot. So for those of you who have tried counseling and you felt like it wasn't a good fit for you, it may have been that it just wasn't a great connection with the counselor. Please know that if you've tried counseling, it's not a one size fits all situation. So know that there are other counselors out there. It doesn't have to be a counselor. It can be a social worker. It can be a psychologist. It can be a therapist. It can be a life coach. Different things work for different people. So don't be afraid to try something else out and see if it fits better. Or to try maybe a group out. Maybe a support group is a better fit for you. If you really are struggling emotionally, I would suggest that if you go towards the group route, that you look for something that's professionally led, because I would hate for you to get stuck into a group that isn't going to work for you either. So it might be best that you have something that's more professionally led, so that it's not, kind of like that Debbie Downer feeling with a group of people complaining all the time. So I would definitely look for something that gives you focus and purpose, and that you walk away feeling like that was a meaningful participation.
Thank you. All right, and we have a question from Teresa in chat. She says, hi, and thanks for this valuable presentation. Regarding the cognitive stimulation program, can I access that from Modesto? Can I use a Mac laptop?
Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for your question. So as far as the cognitive stimulation program, it's here at the Achievement Center. I know you hate when we say that, but you can access the stuff that I'm going to provide to Casey, and you would be able to use that at home. Some of the activities you can actually access online on a computer if you don't have a mobile device. So it may just take a little bit of work to Google search and find out which ones are accessible online, but there are a ton of activities that you can do from a laptop or a mobile device that can work on those cognitive functions. So I hope that answers what you're asking.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see. Our next question. I don't feel comfortable cooking anymore. What are some ideas that you recommend to avoid having to rely on takeout, delivery, and going to restaurants?
All right. So I think that that's something that we hear a lot, whether it's that we don't feel comfortable like physically standing with the hot stove or using like cutlery, or it's that we just don't have the energy for that. And so what I would recommend is to be mindful of, again, utilizing that power pantry to think of maybe some options that don't require so much cooking or prep. So whether it is using like yogurts and nuts and nut butter and toast, those types of things. I'm also a big fan. I recognize they're a little more expensive, but buying some pre-cut or pre-prepared vegetables, then you're not, spending your time and energy and having to use a knife to cut up like a head of broccoli or something like that. That also is quite messy and hard to clean up. Also, there are a ton of kitchen gadgets that have been super helpful for many of our members. Some of them are pressure cookers or slow cookers, just because you can put everything in there and it does the work for you. There's not necessarily that active cooking. So you kind of set it and forget it, and it's kind of taken care of in that sense. And it also, for those of you that live in areas that get really hot in the summer, like it is here, they don't release a lot of heat into the house. So it can be helpful to manage that as well. But just trying to think of those things that are kind of more putting together foods rather than the traditional cooking that we think of. The other thing is, if fatigue is an issue, there's no rule that says that you have to stand at the kitchen counter and cut your vegetables or prep your food or anything like that. Take it to the table, have a seat somewhere, especially if you're trying to do a little bit of extra prepping. So it's not just for one meal. Take it to the couch and put a TV show on or something like that. and kind of make it more of a relaxing, enjoyable experience is another recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Zoe. And let's see, our next question. This sounds like one for you, Brian. It says, I'm a person with MS who suffers from afternoon fatigue. Would it be best to exercise early in the morning with intense activity for at least 30 minutes at a time, or exercise in the morning performing activity 10 minutes at a time with as many rest breaks as I need to get 30 minutes, or just do stretching activities?
So thank you. That's a wonderful question. And I think I touched a little bit upon this in terms of the intervals. So the second option would be the recommendation in most cases, although the last one might be a recommendation depending upon the individual situation. But breaking it up into smaller increments. So in this particular case, doing 10-minute intervals, and that, there's no rule that it has to be 10 either. It could be 5 to start with. You just have to find out where you are in terms of your starting point. But definitely looking at ways in which you can break it up and building yourself up towards that 30 minutes of moderate intensity. And during those particular breaks between intervals, you can do some of that flexibility or some of that stretching, which would be a great way of getting a well-rounded program together.
Okay. All right. This looks like it may be one for you, Tiffany. It says, how can you go about getting mental health care if you don't have insurance?
Oh, that's a really good question. The first thing is to start with your medical provider, wherever you're seeking your medical care, to find out if they have any options that are available in your community. The other thing is that I do believe that National MS Society and perhaps some of the other national MS organizations have a list of providers. It would be held from a telehealth perspective because these providers are all over the nation. However, they are registered with the National MS Society, and again, perhaps with some of the other national MS organizations, to be able to provide mental health services for people living with MS. So I would contact the national organizations and find out if they have that list and if they would be able to connect you with someone who would be able to work with you. Again, that would be a telehealth or a phone appointment, but at least it would give you someone who knows MS and who would be able to work with you either at a very nominal fee, or in some cases, there may be an opportunity for there to be some financial aid for that as well.
Okay, thank you. And Zoe, we've got a question. At what sites do you recommend for recipes?
Oh, that's a fun question. I would be lying if I didn't say that I use Pinterest a lot. But also there is one, I'm not in connection with any specific website or blog or anything like that, but one that I have found to be very helpful is called Skinny Taste. She does a great job of making recipes easier. All the nutritional information is there, and it's a lot of familiar favorites. So that can be fantastic. But I think a lot of it is trying to figure out, looking for recipes on these various sites. Pinterest is a great source of information. I also have always been a fan of like Cooking Light magazine and those, but they, trying to be mindful of the choices of ingredients. And again, if fatigue is an issue, or if like using your hands is a challenge, then I would recommend trying to find those little shortcuts that you can take, whether it's buying pre-cut meat or asking your butcher to cut the meat at the grocery store, or choosing vegetables that don't require as much preparation.
Okay, thank you. And I see we're running a little over on time, but one final question that's very germane at this time of year. How can I keep cool while exercising?
I don't understand why that's germane at this time of year, but no, I'm kidding. It's supposed to be 102 here tomorrow. I'm sure it's warm and humid where you are right now, Casey. So, but there are a couple of things that perhaps maybe you haven't thought about that I'd like to bring forward. First, many people know about cooling vests and cooling other cooling agents that can be very helpful. That allow people to be able to participate in activities for a longer period of time. There are organizations that provide support and funding that might be able to allow you to get one if you can't access one on your own. But there are other things that you can consider, and that one of those is pre-cooling. There is some research out there that looks at the ability to cool your body down prior to your activity. So even if you're working, you're doing your exercise program inside, you're going to have a tendency to increase your core body temperature a little bit. So cooling beforehand, whether that be submersing yourself in cooler water. If you have a pool in your backyard, you could use that. And if you have a tub, you can do that, or you maybe can just use a shower of some sort. If all of those things are difficult from a mobility standpoint, you may need assistance figuring out a way in which you can cool your body a little bit beforehand, whether it be through a vest or cooling your neck, will often allow people to exercise for a longer period of time. So the research that's been done is allowing people to submerse their body in cool water for a period of time, adding some more cool water, and doing that for about 20 minutes. So if you want to follow the steps that the research suggests, that's what you would need to look at doing. But you might be able to modify that a little bit based on your situation, and trying to cool yourself prior to your activity is something to consider also. And then lastly, it's important to make sure that you maintain hydration. We know the challenges that go with hydration, particularly you don't want to have to be in the bathroom all the time, but know that the activity that you're doing will help utilize some of that. The cooling that your body needs to get through hydration is also important. So that's a component that often is underthought of, and a really important one.
Thank you. I don't know how tight your schedule is, if you all have patients waiting, but I see there is one hand I missed. Do we have time for one more question? Okay. Julio, go ahead with your question. Go ahead and unmute Julio. Okay, I guess Julio is having a problem unmuting, so we will wrap up there then. I want to say thank you so much, especially Brian, thank you very much for rescuing me from that coughing fit earlier. Much appreciated. Hopefully everyone got a chance to review the bios of our presenters today that were in your registration email, but you've certainly seen their expertise in action today, so I definitely like to thank them for that. If anyone missed any part of today's teleconference, it will be replayed on msfocusradio.org and available on demand on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Our next teleconference is actually tomorrow. You can join us for that presentation, Learning How to Manage Your MS Spasms and Spasticity with Dr. Ben Thrower. That'll be 3:30 Eastern tomorrow, and you can follow the foundation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the time and the access information. Again, sincere thanks to our presenters, Brian Hutchinson, Tiffany Malone, and Zoe Edwards of the MS Achievement Center in Sacramento, California. Thank you for taking the time to be here and present this helpful information. And thank you to all of our guests for participating.